Well, it's Heart Health Month again, and I'm here to tell you that your heart attack risk is not just about your cholesterol number. Hi, I'm Dr. Greg Forrest, and today I want to talk to you about something that can literally save your life. Most heart attacks and strokes aren't just sudden, they're silent for years. And the biggest mistake I see is people getting their cholesterol number and being told, well, your labs look fine, see you next year. Then an event happens. Well, let's delve into this deeper. Now, this video is for educational purposes only and is not personal medical advice. Always work with your own clinician, especially if you have known cardiovascular disease, diabetes, or if you are taking prescription medications. So let me say this clearly. Your heart attack risk is not just a cholesterol number. It's a whole body story, and we can measure that story. If you want to learn more, listen closely. The uncomfortable truth is that cardiovascular disease is still the number one cause of death in the United States today. In 2023, cardiovascular disease caused 919,032 deaths, about 1 in 3 deaths, about one death every 34 seconds. A heart disease alone caused about 680,981 deaths. These are not just numbers, these are families. That's futures. That's people who thought they were fine because one lab panels looked okay. And if you're thinking, well, I feel fine, my cholesterol isn't that bad, my glucose is normal, heart disease doesn't run in my family, well, please hear me. Heart disease is often a slow burn, which is bad news if you ignore it. But it's a very good news if you're ready to take control and dig deeper, because slow means predictable and predictable means preventable and often reversible. So the failing model, here's the model that's failing patients now today. A yearly physical that checks a few basic numbers, glucose, cholesterol, misses the real drivers of heart disease many times. Listen carefully. I'm not anti-statin. Statins have a place, okay? They can be life-saving. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm strong against the idea that heart disease prevention is simply lower LDL and you're done. That's it. And I'm especially cautious about reflexively going straight into high-dose statins without addressing the terrain, the root causes, the underlying mechanisms that are injuring your arteries every single day. Okay, this is the key point, because the artery wall is still being injured by insulin resistance, chronic inflammation, free radical damage and oxidative stress, what I call rusting, genetic clotting, inflammation risks like LP little a, methylation of elevated homocysteine, of course, smoking, toxins, chronic stress, poor sleep, sleep disruption, and of course, poor diet. If the current approach were enough, we'd see cardiovascular disease dropping dramatically. So it's not just a cholesterol number. We're not there. So what are we missing? And that's what we're going to explore today. The cholesterol myth. You've been taught a simple story. High cholesterol causes heart disease. Real life is a little more honest, a little bit more detailed and more hopeful. Here's the truth. Cholesterol is not a toxin. Cholesterol is essential for life. It's part of every cell membrane. It helps create hormones, vitamin D, stress hormones, sex hormones, testosterone, estrogen. You need that. Your brain is cholesterol rich. It highly regulates its own cholesterol. So the question isn't, do you have cholesterol? You got to have cholesterol. The real question is, why is cholesterol being recruited to an inflamed, injured artery wall? Okay. Kind of what I'd call a Band-Aid model. And here's how I explain it. When the artery lining, that's called the endothelium, the tube, the arteries, get repeatedly damaged by something, high blood pressure keeps pounding on it, smoking toxins, high glucose, high insulin. Insulin's a big toxin to the arterial endothelium, chronic inflammation. The body responds. It gets damaged. It gets injured, and the cholesterol-carrying particles can behave like a temporary repair patch, like a Band-Aid. But if the injury continues day after day after day because of the same lifestyle year after year, that Band-Aid gets trapped under the arterial lining. It gets oxidized, it starts to become inflamed, and over time it becomes this plaque, a plaque that can burst. And if those LDL particles get oxidized, well, what I call rusted or rancid, they shift from a repair mode, Band-Aid mode, to a damage mode. That's the big thing. Inflammation escalates, plaques become more unstable, inflammation makes plaques unstable, and then the plaque ruptures. And that's the key. That's why people get heart attacks. It's not so much the plaque, but it ruptures. Size matters. Most people get standard cholesterol panels, total cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, HDL cholesterol, triglycerides. Helpful, but incomplete. 3 people can have the same LDL, let's say 130, which is a little high, and have very different risks, because what matters is how many LDL particles you have and how small and dense they are, and how inflamed and oxidized your internal environment in your is. So here's a line I want you to remember. Consider asking your doctor to run these tests. Here's why. ApoB, that's the one I run on everybody. ApoB, the number one that you can't ignore. ApoB is one of the best reality checks for atherogenic particle burden. How many plaque-forming particles are circulating in your bloodstream? If your LDL looks okay, but your ApoB is high, you can still have a false sense of security. But think of it like this. LDL cholesterol is the cargo, and ApoB is the number of boats carrying the cargo. More boats mean more chances to get stuck in the artery wall. That's one simple analogy. So what do you do about it? Especially the smaller the boat. Start with a healthy Mediterranean diet, whole foods, olive oil, fish oil, vegetables, legumes, nuts, no ultra-processed foods. You can consider cholesterol-lowering nutraceuticals that have human evidence. For example, red yeast rice, if it comes from a quality product, berberine, very good, as found in Biospec's cholesterol caps. In my clinical experience, these can lower cholesterol markers effectively for the right patient. Time release or extended release niacin has been helpful. Important clinician note, red yeast rice is clinically active cholesterol-lowering ingredient, so use appropriate medical supervision, review medications and other interactions to avoid in pregnancy, and monitor liver enzymes. It's okay, what indicated, especially if symptoms arise, but I find red yeast to be pretty safe. But if you want help interpreting ApoB or building a full prevention plan, go to painandbrainhealingcenter.com or call 763-862-7100. That's 763-862-7100. Then there's the Lp(a), a sticky LDL. It's sticky like Velcro. Let's talk about this major risk factor that most people have never been tested for. I test many of my patients for this. Lipoprotein, or Lp(a). I call it the sticky LDL, the small, dense, sticky LDL. More inflammatory, more easily oxidized, more connected to clotting. So all the factors you don't like. Lp(a) is a largely genetic, and many lab standards don't include it. I mean, you really have to order this special. An extended release niacin, along with lifestyle and exercise, sometimes carnitine, have been shown in studies to lower Lp(a) in many patients. Most patients never know. It's the most atherogenic. And you want to know this before the first event, so you can get aggressive with this Lp(a). Another thing that should be measured, something called homocysteine. I call it the sandpaper of the artery wall. Homocysteine is a functional marker that I use for what's called methylation status. MTHFR, genetic disorders. When elevated, it can behave like a chronic irritant to the vascular lining and can influence clotting biology. This was the problem with my own father. I often describe it as a sandpaper on the arterial wall. But I have good news. Homocysteine is often very modifiable with right nutrition, B vitamins, especially methylfolate, methylcobalamin B12, methyl donors. And that's exactly why we use tools like Biospec's Methylase that I created for the company in appropriate patients who need that. So again, this isn't a fear, it's an action. Good diet, and if you do have increased homocysteine, you can take supplements that can lower it. The biggest misdriver, though, is early insulin resistance. Oh, watch my video on that. Now, here's the elephant in the room. The biggest missed driver of cardiovascular disease is often early insulin resistance. The myth is if your glucose is normal, you're fine, but that's not true. You may have normal glucose that looks normal for years because your pancreas is just pumping out high insulin every time you eat carbs to keep the glucose down. And insulin can damage that endothelium. So your glucose looks fine when you do your yearly, but your insulin, never tested, is damaging your biology behind the scenes, hitting those arteries. So over time, insulin resistance drives also belly fat, blood pressure, high triglycerides, very big risk factor, lower HDL, small, more dangerous LDL particles, all tied into insulin resistance. It's called metabolic syndrome, and it's the pipeline directly into heart disease. Treatment, low carb. Low carb whole food diet for many patients, and targeted botanicals that can improve insulin sensitivity. For example, berberine and cinnamon extract, as found in BioSpec's Glucose IR, can help improve insulin resistant measures in many individuals if they apply the diet, get out and move, and exercise. So, the top 10 cardiovascular risks workup, if you want a real risk, if you want to really measure risk, not just paper risk, these are markers I commonly recommend. Fasting glucose, fasting insulin, hemoglobin A1C, that 3-month average, triglycerides, total cholesterol, HDL, LDL, plus homocysteine, ApoB, LP(a), oxidized LDL, LP(a), PLA2, omega-3 fatty acids. You may not need every test forever, but if you want to check your risk factors, your family history, the chance for plaque formation, that's how you need to do it. This is where you can stop guessing and start working towards a healthier future. Who should take this seriously? If any of the following describe you, then it's time to look deeper. Family history of early heart disease or stroke, belly weight gain, blood pressure rising, you've been told you have high triglycerides, that means you have high particle number, normal cholesterol but worsening health, pre-diabetes, fatty liver, metabolic syndrome, plaque calcification, if you've had that, brain fog, fatigue, chronic pain, chronic inflammation. So these are things to tell you that you need to take a closer look. Here's the takeaway. Cardiovascular disease is rarely sudden. It's usually slow. It builds up over the years. And that means that you have time now to intervene. But intervention starts with the truth. Better testing creates better clarity. Better clarity creates better choices, better outcomes. So if you want more education, go to painandbrainhealingcenter.com. There's a lot of information there. If you want to become a patient, you can call us or go online there, or 763-862-7100. That's 763-862-7100. Don't wait for the event. Take control of your life. Hope for the future. I'm Dr. Greg Forrest. Thank you for watching. I greatly appreciate it. See you in my next video. Again, this video is for educational purposes only. It's not personal medical advice. Always work with your clinician, especially if you have known cardiovascular disease, diabetes, or if you're taking prescription medications. Thank you much for following this, and I hope to see you in the next video. Oh, what the fuck? Oh, oh man.